at number 10, Bob Kelly has the Denver Broncos, the five what once was a 1-5 team has now run off 5 wins in a row. They sit there at 6-5 and the number 10 spot. So are you surprised that we're in week 13 of this NFL season and we're talking about the Broncos as a top 10 team?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we were making jokes galore when they gave up 70 to the Miami Dolphins earlier in the season, and you know, uh, rightfully so. I was getting clowned for my let Russ cook takes because I was very high on the move last year when the trade happened in the off season, and obviously, he was on himself all year, and things that kind of, well, not kind of, they had fell all the way off the face of the earth last season. But, and it looked like the same thing was happening this year. And then all of a sudden, you know, they get the win against Kansas City, get the win in Buffalo on the field goal. Um, Truth be told, they got screwed in that Washington game earlier this year. That was a PI that should have been called. So they're really they could be 7-4 too. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like that, even with that performance. So it just goes to show that maybe Sean Payton is not as washed up as people think he was as a coach. And Russ maybe isn't washed up as people said he was either. And once again, people can say, "Oh, the schedule softened up," or whatever it may be. Once again, people got the Chiefs potentially going back to the Super Bowl. People had Buffalo maybe getting at least to the division round, if not the conference championship. So when you have those two wins there, you can't call this off. And once again, it is too hard to get a win in the NFL on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week if you're playing on a Thursday or Friday, to kind of dismiss it and say, well, oh, it was a weak opponent or it was this and that. It's too hard to win a game. And once again,
Yep.
as those that live as resident New England fans, we're finding that out this year where it's hard wins are hard to come by. So I won't dismiss that narrative anymore where it's like, oh, like, well, it was a tougher schedule. No, it's hard to win, and you got to figure it out. The goals to go 1-0 every week, and that's what they've done for the last five. And they deserve to be at that number 10 spot. You could argue that they could be at number 8, and we'll talk about what number 8 is shortly. But I feel like them and the number 8 team could swap just based off this week alone. Once again, not for the whole season, but just for where it's currently disrupted.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agreed. I think my biggest point of contention with the power rankings this week would be in the 9 or 10 spot. We'll talk about 9, but with the Broncos, the run that they've been on the last 5 weeks, obviously 5-0. I think that we had this thought based on what we were hearing from Sean Payton and all the media pundits that they would be here before the season started. And then we
Right,
saw the first 6 weeks of the season. We're thinking, "Holy shit! Like this is terrible."
right,
Like
right,
he
right, right,
forgot how
right,
to
right, right.
he forgot how to coach, and Russ ain't cooking. He is cooked. And what we've seen is that aside from that, that 70-point debacle with Miami, this
Hmm.
defense is good, and the
Right,
offense it's not complex, but it's efficient,
right,
and
exactly.
and Russ can lead it. Um, so in thinking about talking about like the path to a championship, it's interesting because it brings us again. This week they're playing who I think should be on the power rankings list, the Houston Texans, who are also sitting there at 6-5, and I think they should be on the power rankings list only because no one in their right goddamn mind would have picked them to be in contention this far in. I also think that you and Bobby picked the AFC this past year in the prediction show, and you had the
Mhm.
Texans somewhere around 2 to 3 wins.
Right, correct. Yep,
So,
yep.
so as far as the Broncos go, um, what do you think that their path to an actual championship or to a deep playoff run is? Do they have it, or is this going to be something that if they make it, they're going to get blown out in the first round?
Probably the latter. I don't think this is where they go on a deep run. I think obviously, I know people will say, well, that doesn't mean much if you're just getting there and then you end up losing. But once again, for you to go 1-5, once again, I remember a quarterback about 11 or 12 years ago that started 1-4, and then he comes in and starts, and it becomes Tebow mania. They go 7-4 the rest of the way, win a playoff game against Pittsburgh and the first overtime rules back then in 2011. So maybe it's a similar path that way where they win a wild card game and then they lose in the division round. Honestly, I think from where they started, that would be a success, honestly. And I know, Denver has won what 3 Super Bowls in their franchise history, so and they've been to maybe 6 or 7. So I get it, right? If you get there, they expect to win it, and or you get to the players you expect to win. I get that. I'm just not sure if they're better than the Baltimore's, Kansas City's, or any other team in the NFC, just at the top of the food chain. So, yeah, but yeah, success to me would look like them getting to the playoffs and then potentially winning a game at the most two. But the AFC is stacked, and we know that. So there's a gauntlet they got to run through for that to even be a suggestion.